Another miss for Darwin against Spurs, unfortunately. Despite his progress this season compared to the last, there's been a lot of big chances missed. It's the one part of his game that seems to be a constant, whether he's in form or out of it. When he's in form, he'll smash in a few unbelievable strikes now and then while continuing to miss sitters. When he's out of form, those unbelievable strikes go missing, leaving you with just, well...
Should be finished off but isn't from Darwin Nunez.
Unfortunately for Darwin, his form is tied to his confidence, perhaps even more so than your average player. And so following the scenes from the full-time whistle versus Tottenham, he took his actions a step further to show his discontent on his Instagram profile. In that match, he nearly had an assist if it wasn't for being offside, another frustrating part of his game recently, and he should have had a goal as well. A different outcome in both scenarios, and the Nunez chant would have been heard ringing around Anfield, but this time, it wasn't. Typically, even when he struggles, he gets the support. But not this time. Something to read into? Who knows? We're almost at the same amount of matches as he had with Benfica at this point, and his time at both clubs has mimicked each other. Slow first season, much better second season with some points where he goes missing, and a moment where he shows his anger via his social media accounts. Yes, that's a constant as well. There's nuance in all of this though, so let's get into it. So what happened recently? In case you missed it, a couple of things actually. For one, Darwin is in his worst dry spell this season. He hasn't scored or assisted in 7 consecutive matches, with his last goal coming 9 matches ago. He has 1 goal in his previous 11 appearances. His poor form has coincided with Liverpool's, and he has found himself on the bench more than perhaps he would have liked to be, just 24 minutes across his previous 2 appearances. And I think this is an important thing to point out. It's not just Darwin who has been in poor form. Mo Salah, a leader in their attack, hasn't been the same since his injury at AFCON this January, scoring 7 goals since his return in mid-February. Darwin has scored 1 fewer than Salah in that time span and has far less assists, thanks to Salah getting that hat-trick of assists against Sparta Prague. Luis Diaz has struggled for form like the rest of the attack since that loss against Crystal Palace. Gakpo has recently found form, which has been massive for Klopp. At least someone has found some form. But prior to that, he was majorly struggling this season. And unfortunately, Jota, one of Liverpool's best finishers, has been rocked by injuries all season long. They're really missing him. However, where the heat has increased on Darwin is when it comes to his high-profile misses, which we will go over later, but he has seemingly reached a point where he doesn't feel supported. Darwin had a chaotic cameo against Spurs. He thought he had an assist for Salah, but Darwin was offside in the build-up. He should have had a goal as he was in behind once again, but instead of rounding Vicario, he snatched at a chance yet again, and the keeper saved it. Credit to the keeper, of course, but given where he made the save, with some composure, Darwin should have made it 5 for Liverpool. Now, following that match, many pointed out that Darwin went straight down the tunnel. There was some focus on this. People didn't really focus on his teammate, Gravenberch, going down the tunnel right behind him, but it is what it is. It's not a huge deal in isolation, but when you couple that with what Darwin did next, then of course, he's going to get way more scrutiny, right? Darwin then proceeded to hide every single Instagram post of himself in a Liverpool kit or in Liverpool training. The few hints of his Liverpool associations are those fishing pics, I'm sure you remember, which were from preseason in 2022, and his profile picture as well. Also, he left Liverpool FC in his bio, so not a complete scrub out, but about 99%. Then just to stir the pot a bit, Ronald Araujo posted a selfie with Darwin with the caption, "My brother." Now, of course, there's major intention in what Darwin did. I'm sure that it's to show his dissatisfaction or the lack of support that he feels. There's also some speculation that Darwin may be on his way out of the club after just 2 seasons, given the wholesale change that is happening in the manager position and the director positions behind the scenes. We can't say that for sure at this moment, but the most likely answer to all of this is that he is unhappy with how people are treating him online. More often than not, his name is sung by Liverpool supporters through thick and thin. He really gained his cult status this season due to his personality and effort he puts into his game. So it can be a bit hard to understand why he would do something like delete the majority of the evidence that he is a Liverpool player. If I was a Liverpool supporter, especially one that has supported him through his difficult and frustrating moments, I would feel a bit slighted by that, right? There's always a chance as well that there are ridiculous people saying harmful and threatening things to him on there, but the rest of his posts have comments limited, so who knows? I don't follow him that closely on social media, so closely that I would know as to whether his posts have always had limited comments or not, so apologies. All we know is what we see, which is nothing when it comes to Liverpool. He did something similar while he was at Benfica. There were tons of idiots that were overly critical and saying stupid and threatening things to him while he was out of form, so he temporarily made his account private. I mean, the similarities to his stint at Benfica and Liverpool are quite striking, including: as a record signing, you're viewed with a magnifying glass. You're expected to be revolutionary, but that doesn't happen very often. Instead, he was serviceable and confusing. I mean, I personally enjoyed him because he was chaotic and found ways to create chances for himself through his natural way of getting into dangerous areas, that natural sense he has, and using his speed to create separation between himself and his marker. But his finishing was crap. He was offside a lot, and he had more assists than goals in the league, which when we're spending a club record on a striker, I don't know. He seemed low on confidence, like he was afraid of missing the target, so he would pass to his teammates. But in the second season, the blunders were still there, but he was encouraged to strike at goal more. He was overall an improvement. His assists swung drastically in the other direction, from 12 in his first season to just 4, but so did his goals in a positive way, from 14 to 34 in his second season. That same thing has happened at Liverpool to a certain extent. So like I said back when Liverpool signed him, and continue to say to this day, continued to say, I guess, his second season would be where he improves, and that's for sure been the case when you look at his output and many parts of his overall game as well. He scored 18 goals and has 13 assists this season, where last season he only contributed with 15 goals and 4 assists. His major strides have of course emerged from how he has been able to draw attention to himself and then set up his teammates. So far that's 3 more goals and 9 more assists than last season. But there have been about 600 more minutes played this term. He's looked sharper for much of the season as his movement has improved as well, and he is able to carve out dangerous opportunities for himself. The big trouble comes with his finishing. His record for hitting the woodwork this season was once seen as an unlucky, unfortunate, and kind of funny stat. He's hit the woodwork a league-leading 9 times in the Premier League, almost twice that of second-placed Ollie Watkins. But now that his finishing has dropped off again and he isn't scoring as often, that changes the perception of him being unlucky and it being funny to just him being untidy in the finish. But what do the stats say about his finishing in particular? Pretty much what you'd expect. His shots on target percentage has improved by 1.2% in the Premier League. His shots on target per 90 have increased from 1.86 to 2.01. His goals per shot and goals per shot on target are virtually the same, and his non-penalty goals minus his expected goals, remember top strikers often overperform in this category. Well, similarly to last season, he is underperforming on this metric. Last season, he had minus 3.1 with 9 goals from 12.1 non-penalty XG, and this season he is a bit worse at minus 4.4 with 11 goals from 15.4 expected goals. Of course, it goes without saying that his assists are where he has improved the most. He's done very well in that regard. It's unfortunate in a sense because if he hadn't lost form like the rest of Liverpool's attackers, he would have been on track for a fantastic season. If he was a bit tidier in the finish, he would have been on track to, conservatively speaking, hit around 16 or 17 goals or so, with close to double digits in assists as well. But that's unfortunately been the story for his time at Liverpool. He's been close, but not quite. He's been good for some goals, but unreliably so. Where he offers quality in other areas, where he provides quality and dedication, the sheer amount of misses cast a shadow over the rest of his game. As mentioned earlier, he's a confidence player like I've never seen before. That second season at Benfica, when things were going well for him and he felt good and comfortable and he was happy, he would still miss chances, of course, but he was burying more than he was missing. And it's one of the rare cases of Darwin actually overperforming on his XG. Of all the good I had to say about Darwin, this was one of the things that I highlighted as an area of concern. He's a raw talent that could explode, but the fact that he didn't have a large resume of overperforming on his XG meant that we didn't know if that second season at Benfica was the start of the rocket ship taking off or an outlier. Unfortunately, you can't look to him to lift an entire squad really if he's low on confidence, but if things are flowing, he will do quite well. Where the trouble comes in is when supporters take things a little too far with their criticisms. They get angry about him not being the clinical striker that they had hoped he would be. But at this point, I think it's safe to say that Getting angry at him for this is simply getting angry at Darwin for not being something that he never was. He has plenty of redeeming qualities. He will create opportunities for himself and others through his movement and hard work, but if you want polish, it's Russian roulette with him in that regard. You never know what's going to happen. He's going to miss from 2 yards out, or he's going to score from 25. It's random. In my opinion, I'm a Darwin lover. The good outweighs the bad overall when it comes to him. Let me explain. If you look at him as someone who isn't a final product yet, he hasn't quite hit that. He's still 24, so he could yet hit his stride and become clinical. I think that's teachable, especially when it comes to rounding the keeper. It's not something that you see him do often enough, in my opinion. Instead, you see him try to finish past an onrushing keeper to varying degrees of success. Often not much. But then there's the other world. There's a world where his finishing is never something that he is able to clean up permanently, similar to Alvaro Morata. For all that both Morata and Darwin offer in the rest of their game, for all of the ways that they have grown in other departments, they may never be the clinical striker that people want them to be. And it's on us to simply accept that and stop using their finishing or lack thereof as a stick to beat them with. That could indeed be how Darwin's career goes. Seasons where he is chaotic still, but has more moments of composed finishing than he does of erratic finishing, i.e. second season at Benfica, followed by a season like this one. Great purple patches, and then patches of misfiring that drag him back down to his average. If you look at the overall picture and his progression as a player in general, then you would largely be happy with Darwin Nunez. It's similar to judging coaches and their accomplishments versus how they have improved a side overall. Are they getting the squad to play better? Are they progressing in areas they previously struggled in? Maybe they haven't won silverware yet, but are they indeed progressing rather than regressing? Overall, I think it's hard to argue that Darwin has actually regressed at Liverpool. This season, despite not being able to completely clean up his finishing, he's made improvements in the rest of his game, and he has provided his teammates with plenty of opportunities while increasing his goal output. But unfortunately, when the misses become a habit, you start to lose some goodwill amongst certain sects of supporters. And when emotions are already high with Klopp leaving and that perfect finish that people wanted for Klopp's Liverpool career down the drain, then emotional reactions will come out whenever Darwin has another miss. Suddenly, he takes the blame for some of these results, if unfairly. It's a shame because Klopp himself has spoken about how much talent Darwin has and how he absolutely adores playing for Liverpool and wants to be successful at the club. And so when he feels unsupported by the supporters, Darwin that is, whether it's true or not only does he act out with his social media presence, but he will continue to spiral and struggle on the pitch due to low confidence. It's a vicious circle, and if supporters aren't ready to accept the good with the bad, then they have quite the dilemma on their hands when it comes to Darwin. Anyway, that's my take on it. Excited to read what you guys think in the comments below. And hey, if you're new to the channel, I encourage you to subscribe if you want more videos like this one. Beyond that, I'm Adrian and have a great day. Ciao.